So, I kind of like to keep my finger on the pulse of anime tie-in games, and recently I've been looking a lot into sort of the older ones, because I feel like where in modern times there's a lot more worry about sort of meeting expectations in terms of sales, because the resource cost is so high to create games, there isn't as much space for experimentation in the way that there was before. You know, you have like the Nadia of the Blue Water NES game, which was like this weird Archon clone where it was a board game and the battles would take place as sort of like a Final Fantasy style RPG. Or you have like Dragon Ball Z Supersonic Warriors for the Game Boy Color, which was this turn-based fighting game where all of your attacks were built into a deck and you would sort of draw your attacks each turn to be able to fight. Like, that sort of stuff is very fascinating because it just shows sort of the scope of what you could make more than just what's kind of currently going on, which is arena fighters. Not that that's necessarily bad, but it's just been very normalized as of late, and I think that it's just kind of a shame that that diversity doesn't exist anymore. Even within the genre, I feel like everything kind of follows the same formula. There's nothing like the Samurai Champloo sidetrack system where like your combos and everything change with the background music CDs that you pick up and play. And while this game that we're going to be looking at isn't too far off from what you'd expect out of a 2D fighter, I think that the way it's been implemented and some of the systems behind it are very interesting, and I want to talk about them. So, Yu Hakusho, of course, one of these sort of like iconic, classic shonen series, written and illustrated by Yoshihiro Togashi, probably better known now for Hunter x Hunter, but it's best known for the Dark Tournament saga, which is what all of the games are based off of. And Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament Rumble was an NES release in 1993, 3 years into the Super Nintendo's life cycle, that would have released right as the finals of the Dark Tournament started airing in Japan. So this was sort of like concurrent, really riding the hype of the series. And I think it kind of outclasses the PS2 one we got to coincide with the Toonami run, honestly. While this game did come out significantly after the Super Nintendo started, it's very clear that it took a lot of influence from the way that Super Nintendo fighters like Street Fighter II tried to capture the arcade-style gameplay and translate it to a more simplistic controller. But probably the biggest sort of like interesting feature of this game is the DATACH system. Bandai, for a number of its games, released this accessory for the NES that you would plug the game into, and then they would sell cards separately that you would swipe into the accessory in order to access these characters. Now, I have a patch added onto the game that just lets me pick from the series of cards that were available at the time. But, if you were playing it contemporarily, you'd be going out to the store and buying, like, booster packs that you could find Kuwabara so you could use them for the fight or whatever. And they would have different, like, power levels. This patch uses just sort of the strongest version of each character, but they would come with, like, oh, this character only knows one super, two supers, their stats are way lower. Also get used to this. This happens a lot. But Dark Tournament Rumble follows the same general setup of the story in the manga. You fight through 4 teams in this same arena, and the point is just to get their HP down to 0. And if you get knocked out of the arena, you take a little bit of damage, and you have to mash the buttons to get back in, because if you spend 10 seconds outside the ring, you lose. So it kind of gives this alternative win con as well. One that, did come up in the anime, but not really. I love when the computer trades with you like that. It's very charming. But yeah, so this game, it has a punch and a kick button, the two buttons on the NES, but then it has a number of super moves that you accomplish via quarter circles, half circles, charge attacks. And it's really responsive in a way that I was really surprised by playing this. And they all kind of match to sort of what you expect the movement to be. Like, a sword swipe is going to be down and back kind of stuff, or, Yusuke shooting his spirit gun is going to be down and forward, like he's picking up his hand. It's all very charming and pretty well put together. The hitbox is maybe a little weird, as you saw on some of those kicks and stuff, but for the most part, it's very competent. One other charming thing is, if you do particular super moves at the end of fights, you'll get this, splash screen at the bottom showing your character doing a cool pose. But I thought for this, I'd just kind of go through each of the 4 rounds and show off one fight with a different character, kind of just to show the breadth of mechanics going on. And I don't want to just keep it to one round, because each round has its own music, so this gives me kind of a little bit of difference between each of the fights. So the game has a pretty large roster, 22 characters, and it reduces most of the enemy teams down to, their 3 most iconic characters, so you don't get, the kid in the first team who immediately dies from Kurama's death plant and stuff like that. But you get the ones with sort of the most memorable fights, with sort of the most unique powers, that really give more mechanical identity to the game than you might expect. Kurama gets sort of all of the major attacks you'd expect out of him, sort of the flower petal attack, you have his rose whip, things like that. And then you have Gamma, who has this awful move in this game that, makes sense. It's the one where he restricts Kurama's power. He can just do that, here. And he just stops you for, what feels like forever. It's probably only, 5-10 seconds. And the computer takes no advantage of it at all, which is hilarious. But it's just really frustrating to get caught in that, because, as far as I can tell, there's no way to block it. So speaking to the sort of mechanical identity of these specials, I think it's cool that, with, thrusting attacks, it's always you hold back and then press forward an A, you do kind of this charge move to simulate what the action would be in order to do the attack. I just find stuff like that really charming, and especially with as simplistic as everything in this game is, it really speaks to sort of focusing on the most expressive thing they can do, especially you have these very small sprites that I think have a lot of attitude to them. I think something really cool is it's sort of built body types, as it were, weight classes into this, where in the first fight with the kid with the yo-yo, it's he's a smaller character, so he jumps way higher, his jumps can go longer, he is smaller, things like that. As you get to larger characters, their jumps just aren't as high, and so you have sort of a different mechanic to look into that, as far as the mobility of any particular character. So, to talk about the system a little bit, so you have HP and SP, so you have your health, which is just a number-based version of what you'd see in a health bar of any other fighting game, and you have SP, which is your super meter, basically. You build super meter really slowly in this game. If you hit with a basic punch or kick, you get SP equal to half of the damage that you've built, so you start with a lot of SP, but for the majority of games, the SP that you end up using is mostly just going to be from that initial pool, and if you run out, it's really hard to catch back, because certain special moves just do so much more damage than your average normals, and so catching back up, especially if your enemy has a lot of SP left, can be really tough. So in the original game, it would have stopped you from using any one but the main 4 characters during the story mode, but would have let you use any of them during the versus battle. This patch kind of removes that restriction, so you can use everyone, so you can be like a little more accurate and be like, oh, I get to use Genkai during this fight against Onji and stuff like that. I think this is a cool little thing too, like, it's not like a proper form change, but I think it's cool that it recognizes that, you know, these characters change in the fight, and so it shows that by when you start the fight, they change into their more proper form. It does that with the other guy in this team too, the guy who turns into the Beast Man. He has the exact same thing as this. Not quite as funny because he doesn't turn into like a weird clown, you know, Hisoka Prime, as it were. But I think it's a really cool touch. Genkai is kind of a neat little character. Like, all of her attacks are basically the same as Yusuke's, minus the fact that she doesn't use a headbutt. But she has this particular aspect to her crouch kick that she moves a little bit when she does it, that I think can help you kind of like get in on certain characters where it might be tougher for her. But yeah, like, a lot of these characters kind of have both close range and long range options, and I think it's really well balanced, minus like being able to play the boss characters in this version, but you know, no one ever builds for that. But like, you know, you have form changes with like Bowie as well in this one. Like, it's not a proper form change, they just make it 2 different characters, but in the story it'll be like, you know, you fight Armored Bowie, and then he goes, you know, this isn't my final form, and he rips the armor off, and he's like a completely different character with a whole new moveset, and you can play as both of them in the versus mode. It's really cool. My time with Yu Hakusho was kind of limited to what I caught on Toonami. At the time when this would have been airing, you know, I'm like 11 years old. I'm only staying up late to, you know, watch cartoons when my parents aren't paying attention. And I remember catching quite a few episodes of Yu Yu Hakusho, and I think this fight, the Kurama versus Karasu fight, might have been the first one I ever caught, because I remember being really terrified of some of the Kurama stuff, like the Death Plant stuff, or like the Ogiji plant, like that attack. I think it's really funny how they've kind of captured all of these in this game. It's very charming. But yeah, I feel like a lot of my memories of Yu Yu Hakusho are actually attached to the Kurama stuff, because I think about like the Death Plant attack, I think about this particular fight that, you know, scared me as a child, like some of the like the flower petal like shield stuff. I wonder if I just like caught a block that was just like all of Kurama's best moments, like the fight with the fisherman, which they also cut out of this game, which is a shame, but makes sense. That guy doesn't do anything. It's weird to think about too, because like this would have been before I like had heard about sort of the like distinction between anime and cartoons, and so it was just like, it was so different from everything else I had watched, even like more like children's style anime like Pokemon and stuff. It just like really drew me in, but also really terrified me until I started catching it on reruns a couple years later. I really got to go like, oh, damn, Yu Yu Hakusho's cool. But yeah, that's Yu Yu Hakusho Dark Tournament Rumble. I've just been like, I don't know, something about this has got me playing it just on and off for like the past like month or so, and I just wanted to show off, you know, something I find really neat.